Begin today the Gemara on Daf Tzad Gimel Amud Beis. We're holding where it says Bar Ade. The first word in the line is Agra. The Gemara continues here the halachas of Hashem Echinam, Hashem Yisachar. The discussion was whether Hashem Yisachar has to guard better and more than people normally guard because he got paid. Bar Ade Savullah. Bar Ade was a porter. Havakamave Chiyusa Agamla Denorish. He was taking animals that he was paid to guard them as a shepherd over the bridge by the river of Norish. One animal pushed another, and it threw it into the water. So he came from Rav Papa, and Rav Papa says, you're responsible to pay for this. This was a hire that he was paid. So he asks Rav Papa, what could have I done? It's not, I had him go over properly, and one animal got wild. It's out of my control. So he told him, you should have had them pass through on the bridge, one single file line, not near each other, so they shouldn't push each other. So he asks him, people do this way? Do you have a bar achsech, which literally means a nephew, or Rashi says, is there anybody that you know that does it this way? That goes through single file line? So why am I expected to do more than what people normally do? So I answered him, already the people that came before you screamed about this and claimed the same thing, but no one paid attention to them. The point that he was telling him is that what the Gemara said before, that Rav Chisda and Rabbi Bar Avona said that if you're Hashem Yisachar, you're expected to do more than the normal. That's why you're getting paid, and therefore you have to take them in a single file line. So the Gemara, Eivu, another story, Eivu Afked Kisna Berunya. So Eivu gave to Runya flax to keep for him. And here the case is that he was a Shem Echinam. He was not paid. So what happened? Azul Shvu, Shamtemine Shavu, which was a Ganev in those times. He was a known Ganev. And he was actually, Rashi says, an armed Ganev. He came and he stole it from them. L'saif, Hukara Ganev. So in the end, they identified him. They found that he's the one that stole it and he has it. So now the question is, you know where this thing is. And you'll be able to take that person to a Dintaira or whatever and get it back from him. So Asla Kamei Rav Nachman, they came to Rav Nachman, Chayve. So Rav Nachman says that you know where the Ganev is, so you go and get it back from the Ganev. But meanwhile, you as a Shemer have the responsibility to pay the owner. You pay the owner, but now since we know who the Ganev is, you'll be able to get it back from the Ganev. So you have to go through the trouble to get it from the Ganev. And the Chiddush here is, he's saying this not only regarding Hashem Yisachar, even regarding Hashem Echinam, even though the Shem Echinam is usually only responsible for negligence, but he's going to have to pay, and then the trouble to get it from the Ganev is going to be the Shem's responsibility. Says the Gemara, shall we say that Rav Nachman is arguing with Rav Huna bar Avin? Why? Because the Shalach Rav Huna bar Avin said and sent the following halacha. Nigneva ba'ines, if you have a case where it's, the object was stolen from the Shemer, with an oines, like an armed robber, and then you recognize who the Ganev is. So who's the one that has to go through the trouble to get it from the Ganev? So he said it depends. If the Shemer is a Shem Echinam, so Ratza Nishba, Ratza is the Imadin. If he wants, he can swear and say that it was a Gneve, it was a Eines, and therefore I'm Pater, and you, the owner, you should go deal with the Ganev to get it from him. Or if he wants, he can pay, and then he'll go and deal with the Ganev to get it from him. So he has a choice because he's only a Shem Echinam, he wasn't paid. But if he was paid, then I see my din. So then, since we know now who the Ganev is, you can go and get it and get it from the Ganev. So you have to go through that trouble, and meanwhile you have to pay the owner, give him back the item. So we clearly see that Rav Huna bar Avin says that regarding this halacha, who has to go through the trouble to deal with the Ganev, it depends if you're Shem Echinam or Shem Yisachar. Rav Nachman though paskin that even by Runya, which was a Shem Echinam, he told him, you go and get it from the Ganev, and meanwhile pay the owner. So Rav answers, no, the case by Runya, what Rav Nachman paskin, it was a whole different reason. There it was really the negligence of Runya. Why? Because Hassam Gavre the Farmuska Avakaime. Over there, when this theft happened, there were government officials around or police around. There were people that could have helped him. The Irama Kala, if he would have screamed, if he would have gotten the people's attention or the police attention, they would have saved him. They would have the Gneva would have never happened. So this was a Gneva which was a Pshia. That's what Rav Nachman said. It's your responsibility now to go deal with the Ganev, and meanwhile go and pay the owner because it was a Pshia. So we learned the halacha before that regarding a einis, Hashem mechinam, Hashem misachar, is potter on a einis, something that's out of your control. So here the Mishnah gives different examples of how you define a case of an einis. Ze'ev echad, if your flock of sheep was attacked by one wolf, ein einis. That's not an einis. You have the ability to save the sheep from this one wolf. Shnei zeivim, but if it's two wolves, then einis. That is considered to be an einis. Rabbi Yehuda says, B'shas, mishlacha zeivim, if it's a time when these wolves are attacking a city and they're very wild, then av ze'ev echad einis. Then even if by your flock of sheep there's only one wolf that's attacking you, it's considered to be a einis because then this wolf is very wild. Shnei klovim, two dogs that come and attack, ein einis. That's not an einis. You can handle it. Yadua Bavli Yoim Mishum Rav Meir. Yadua Bavli said in the name of Rav Meir, Meruach Chachas, if it's two dogs that are attacking and they're coming together from one side, ein einis. They're not so wild, they're together, so it's not an einis. Mishtei Ruchais, if they're coming to attack from two opposite directions, then einis, that is an einis. Halistim, Harei Zainis, a robber that comes and steals from you, that is a einis. The Gemara is going to explain what kind of listing we're talking about. Ha'ari, a lion, a doiv, a bear, va'nemer, a leopard, va'bardalis. What's a bardalis? What do you have over there? A bardalis. Okay, there's different. It's not clear exactly what it is. A what cat? Okay. Ha'v'hanochosh and a snake. Harei loinis. All these, they're wild. This is considered to be an einis. So the Mishnah, Emisai, Bisman Shabbat Melein. All these distinctions that we made here, whether it is or isn't an einis, that's if you're going along your way with your animals, and these wild animals come and attack you. But if you bring your animals to a wild place where you know that there's wild beasts there, then ein einis. Even if it's just one wolf that attacked, you brought it over there to a wild place, then it's not an einis. It's your pshia. Meisa kedarka, the animal just dies. And just dies kedarka without. So then harei zainis. That's zainis. Sokfa umeisa. If you caused pain for the animal, you didn't feed it properly, you did other things that caused pain to the animal, and because of this umeisa it died, then ein einis. That's not an einis. Taisus over here says the chiddush of the Mishnah is even if it's a situation where afterwards when it died, it's not clear if it died from the fact that you caused it pain or not. But nevertheless, because you did cause it pain, we're going to assume that it was because of that, and it's considered to be a pshia. Also, what if the animal was running? It went up to the heights of the tip of a mountain, which means you didn't take it there. It was running there and it schlepped you up there. You couldn't stop the animal. It was running up. And then when it fell at Ezainis, it's out of your control. The animal was running away from you. You took the animal up to such a high, dangerous place. The nafla and it fell. Umeisa died. That's not an einis. So the Gemara, but what did the Mishnah say? That if it's one wolf that attacked, it's not an einis. In fact, the Gemara, but we learned in the Braise that zev echad, one wolf attacks einis. It is an einis. That Braise was speaking about, as the Mishnah itself here said, in a time when the wolves are attacking. As Rabbi Yehuda said, then the wolves are very wild, and even one wolf is an einis. The Mishnah said that a robber, that is. The Mishnah just simply says a robber is an einis. But the question is, why is it an einis? So you're the shepherd, so why can't you fight off this robber that's attacking you? You should be able to fight him off. Amarav, so Rav says no, balista mezuyan. He's an armed robber, so therefore you can't fight with him, and that's an einis. But so based on this, the Shaila was asked, lista mezuyan. What if it's an armed robber? V'roya mezuyan. And the shepherd is also armed. Mahu, what's the halacha? Do we say that you are expected to fight with him, just like he's armed, you're also armed, so you have to fight with him? This armed robber, so this is his business. He's an armed robber and he takes risks and he's ready to fight even if his life is in danger. But you, as a shepherd, you don't have to put yourself in danger to go and fight with him. So the Gemara answers and says, yeah, this makes sense. Mistavre, it's logical to say the high masa nafshe, v'hale masa nafshe, that the armed robber, he's going to take risks and he'll fight much more, and you are not expected to go and fight to that extent. If the armed robber encounters a shepherd, And the shepherd here, they're having a conversation. The shepherd here is not with this robber in the place where he has all his sheep, but he encounters this robber, and this person is trying to scare off this robber, and he tells him, Gan Vesaria, you dirty robber, but duch the plan yesvinon, that we're here in that place. Kach v'kach gavri ikebadon. I have more shepherds, more people with me that will be able to fight with you. Kach v'kach kalbi ikebadon. We have this amount of dogs that will come and attack you. Kach v'kach zukse psikalon. We have this and this amount of slingshots that we can fight with you. Now, this person is trying to scare him. And instead, he's exposing himself and giving all the information, exactly where he is and what he has to fight him off. And so this robber now has all the information, and he comes after you, and he's able to steal from you. So what's the halach in such a case? So Rava says, this person is a fool. Just like the Mishnah says, that you bring your animals to a place where the wild beasts are. It's your negligence. Over here, you yourself told them all the information where you are and what exactly it is that you have. So then it's your fault that he now came and robbed from you. Sagt the Mishnah, Masne Shemechinam, a Shemechinam can make a condition liis pater mishvua, that he tells the owner, I'm taking this thing, I'll keep it for you, I'll safeguard it for you, but only if on the condition that I'll be pater from a shvua. Usually, if he claims that he was not negligent, so then he has to swear that that's the case. But he says, I'm making a condition that I will not have to swear. He can make such a condition. V'ashoyel, and the shoyel that would be chayev on any einus, he can make a condition liis pater shalom, that I'm borrowing, but the condition here is that I'll be pater to pay. The Shem Isachar and the Seicher that are chayev for gneva v'aveda, but pater from an einus, and for that he would have to swear if an einus happened. They can make a condition that also liis peturim mishvua, not to have to swear for an einus, olam shalom, and not to have to pay for gneva v'aveda. So these conditions that you make will take effect. But then the Mishnah says, anytime you make a condition against or different than what the Torah says, the way the Torah describes the conditions should be, tanoi bottle. Your tanai is bottle, it doesn't take effect. Okay, so the Gemara will right away explain that it seems like a contradiction to what the Mishnah just said. Another din the Gemara says about Bechlal, when you make a tanai, v'chol tanai, sheyesh maisa b'tchilasoi, tanoi bottle. Anytime when you make a tanai, and first you say the maisa, and then you say the Tanai is bottle. Which means that if you first say that here, I'm borrowing this from you, or I'm giving this to you, and then afterwards you mention the condition, that the condition is going to be so and so. Because you first mentioned the Maisa and then the Tanai, it's going to be bottle. When you want to make a condition, in order that the condition should actually limit the Maisa and it should be conditional to this Tanai, so you have to first mention the Tanai and then the Maisa. And Rashi says, we learned this out from Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, when Moshe Rabbeinu made with them the condition that they'll be able to inherit the territory on the other side of the Yarden, only if they go and fight with their brothers in Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu says the Tanai first, Im Yavru. If you go and fight, that's the condition. And then afterwards he said the Maisa, then Unisatem. Then I'll give you and you'll get this territory. Same thing with any Tnai. In order for the Tnai to have an effect and to limit the Maisa, you first have to mention the Tnai and then the Maisa. But if you say the Maisa first, then the whole Tnai is ineffective. And the Maisa remains in effect and it's not conditional. Any kind of Tnai that you're able to fulfill this Tnai, it's realistic, it's possible to fulfill it. And you make this Tnai first, and the Tnai takes effect. But if you make a kind of Tnai which is totally not realistic, so then the words of the Tnai are meaningless, it's not to be taken serious. The action that was said takes effect unconditionally. Okay, so the Gemara now asks right away on the first halacha of the Mishnah, Amai, why does the Mishnah say regarding the Shem Mechinam, the Shem Isachar, the Shoyel, that they're able to make a condition to change the terms that the Torah says? Masna Mashakasa b'Torah, he's making a condition different than what the Torah says. Masna Mashakasa b'Torah, Tnai bottle, as the Mishnah itself says. If you make a condition against what the Torah says, the Tnai is ineffective. Answers the Gemara, Hamani Rabbi Yehuda. Our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. The Amma, Rabbi Yehuda says, when it comes to money matters, here you do have the power to make a condition, to change the terms of your obligation, your responsibility, than the way the Torah says it. Where do we see this? The Tanya, in the Braisa regarding Kedushin. A person gets married, so the Torah obligates a husband for three things. She'er ksus and to feed his wife, to give her clothing, and also the marital relations. So now if a person says to a woman, Harei mukudeshesli, that I'm getting married to you, but but I don't have responsibility for any of these three things that the Torah says. The Kiddushin takes effect, the Tanai bottle, and the conditions that he tried to change the terms of the Kiddushin, of the way the Torah says, is pointless, nothing. Divrei Rab Meir, that's what Rab Meir says. Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. Regarding the sharing ksos, which is food and clothing, which is a money matter, over there, Tanoi Kayin. Then that he can change from what the Torah says, and the Tanai takes effect. But regarding the marital relations, that he can't change from the terms of the Torah. So the same thing in our Mishnah, because we're talking about the payment of a Shem Mechinam, Shem Mesachar. So here you can the Davar Shabamama and the Tanai can take effect. But the Gemara asks, how could you say that the Mishnah here is following Rabbi Yehuda? What does the Mishnah say right afterwards? Anytime you make a condition against what the Torah says, Yitnai is bottle. So here the Mishnah seems to be saying this, that any Tnai, even by a Davar Shabamamin, that you make against Torah, the Tnai is bottle, it sounds like Rab Meir's opinion. So the Gemara says, Nahole Kashya, that's not a question. I can tell you that the whole Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. When the Mishnah in the end says the statement that if you make a Tnai against Torah, the Tnai is bottle, it wasn't talking about what it said in the Reisha when you were making a Tnai regarding a money matter. The Mishnah there is saying that statement regarding things that are not a money matter, exactly like Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. So that part of the Mishnah could all go according to Rabbi Yehuda. But the Gemara asks, but it still doesn't fit with the next case of the Mishnah. What did the Mishnah say further? Kol Tnai, sheyesh boy ma'aseh b'tchilasai Tnai bottle. Anytime when you say the Tnai, you first say the ma'aseh, and only afterwards do you add the condition, the Tnai doesn't take effect. You have to first say the condition that the whole ma'aseh is conditional on this, mentioning the Tnai first. Aman shamet leidis lehasvara. Who's this opinion? Who's the one that holds that you must say the Tnai before the ma'aseh? Rab Meir. This is Rab Meir's opinion. Tanya, as we learned in Abraise, Mishum Rab Meir, he said this halach in the name of Rab Meir, Tnai, Kaidin L'Maisa Arez Tnai. If the Tnai is mentioned before the Maisa, then the Tnai takes effect. Maisa, Kaidin L'Tnai. If the Maisa is mentioned first, and then you add the condition, and it Tnai. It's not conditional. And the Maisa takes effect without the Tnai. So that's Rab Meir. So from the fact that he says, in the name of Rab Meir, it's clear that Rab Yehuda and the Chachamim argued with Rab Meir. So if so, our Mishnah must follow according to Rab Meir. And what's Rab Meir's opinion? By a Davar Shabamamin, even by a money matter, a Tnai of the Torah cannot take effect either. So how does the Mishnah in the beginning say regarding the Shomrim that they could change the terms of their Shmirah with a Tnai? And says the Gemara, Elo Kula Rab Meir. We could actually say, you're right, that it's not, our Mishnah is not Rab Yehuda. The entire Mishnah is all Rab Meir. And here, in our case, even Rab Meir would actually agree that you can make a Tnai. The Shani Hacha, our case is different. From the beginning, he never obligated himself to be a Shomer. So the way Rashi puts it is that when it comes to this Tnai, since before he accepts upon himself the Shmirah, he says right away, these are the conditions that I'm taking it from you, so that Tnai takes effect, and he's not going to have to do the Shmirah according to the terms of the Torah. Mashenkin by, for example, Kiddushin, that we spoke before about, even if he wants to make a Tnai regarding the money matter, but he told her already, Hareat Mekudeshes. And then he says, Al Menah Shein Alai Sheksus Vayino. So because he already said Hareat Mekudeshes, so the Kiddushin takes effect, even a Davar Shabamamin afterwards, he's not going to be able to change the terms of the Kiddushin, even by Davar Shabamamin. That's how Rashi puts it. Okay, but the Lashon of Rashi is not so clear. The Rishonim here ask on Rashi, because l'chayra that means by Kiddushin, if you say the Tnai before the Kiddushin, you should be able to change the terms of the Kiddushin. But the truth is, the Gemara here said that according to Rab Meir, you always have to say the Tnai before the Maisa. If you say the Tnai after the Maisa, it doesn't take effect. You must say it before anyways. So the Rishonim explain, and maybe this is the kavanah of Rashi as well, that by a shomer, what you're basically telling the person is when you're making a Tnai, you're not telling him, I'll be your shomer, but with these conditions. What you're basically telling him is, I'm not your shomer. Just like if a person asks you to guard something, you can tell him, Hanach, just put it on. And that Hanach lefanecha, which means I'm not your shomer. Over here as well, when you're making the Tnai, what you're basically saying is, I am not your shomer. So the fact that I'm taking it anyways, and I'll do you a favor that I'll keep it, yeah, but I'm not a shomer though, and therefore I'm going to be potter. That's why the Tnai takes effect. It's not really a t'nai in the ma'aseh. There's no ma'aseh. There's nothing. He's not a shomer. A shenkin by kedushin, there's no such thing. You can't say, I'm not mekadeshes. The Torah says the din of kedushin. The kedushin is not up to you. If you want to be mekadeshes, the Torah says how to do it. You can't make a t'nai in this, no matter how you do it. If it's kedushin, it's kedushin. You can't say it's not kedushin. It is kedushin. So, yeah, he's trying to get married. So therefore, you can't make any t'nai according to the Meir. That's one of the esbeirim that the Rishonim say here on this. Tane and a brayso we learned. Now, a person could actually do the opposite. A person can make conditions that'll be even more responsible than what the Torah says. Hashem Yisachar can make a condition, Lias Kishoyel, that he's going to be responsible, like a person that borrows, to be responsible even for an einus. V'mai, so one asks how, but Dvarim just with words, he just says, I'll be responsible more, just it takes effect if he just says words. So Shmuel says, no, words itself is not going to work. B'shekonomi yoda, he has to make a kinyan of chalipin, where it's going to take effect that he must follow through with this condition that he made. But Rabbi Yechanan says, if a person says that I'm obligating myself to be responsible like a shoyl, you don't need a kinyan that it should take effect. Why does it take effect? Because bahahiyah no, the kanofik lekola. Because now the benefit that this person has for the fact that now there's a rumor that everybody knows, the inish mehemnahu, that this person is very trustworthy. Because even if he's only renting, or even if he's only doing a job as a Shem Yisachar, he takes full responsibility even for an Einus, Gama Mishabed Nafshei. That itself, that Hana, is in the place of a Kenyan, that he's totally Mishabed himself. It's not just simply words. Yeah, there's a Hana here that he's receiving in return that is Mishabed himself to be Chayiv like a Shayel. And the Mishnah said, when you make a t'nai, only if it's a realistic t'nai that can be fulfilled, so then the t'nai takes effect. It becomes conditional. Otherwise, if it's not an unrealistic thing, then the t'nai is pointless. So Rav Tavla says in the name of Rav, Zu divrei Rav Yehuda ben Teimeh. What it says in our mission is following the opinion of Rav Yehuda ben Teimeh. However, the Chachamim argue and they say, even if you make a condition that is impossible to fulfill, and you make it conditional in the beginning with this, Tanoi Kaim. The T'nai takes effect, which basically means that the whole Maisa will never happen, because it's conditional to this T'nai that is impossible to fulfill. And the Gemara brings a source for this. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braise, a person says to a woman, his wife, here, this is your get, but here's the condition. On condition that you climb up to heaven, or that you'll go down to the abyss, or on the condition that you swallow a reed that's 100 amas long or large, or on the condition that you pass through the Mediterranean Sea by foot. So these are all conditions that are impossible to do. The t'nai does take effect. So, rather, the way you read it is, the sky at night, if you fulfill this condition, is a get, then it'll be condition. It'll be a get, that is. If you did not fulfill the condition, and a get, it won't be a get. Which basically means that this get will never be a get. Rabbi Yehuda ben Teimeh, get. Such a kind of condition is a get. And he explains, Klal Omer Rabbi Yehuda ben Teimeh, Kol Sheyef Shalei L'Kaima B'Seifai. If it's at night that can't be fulfilled, V'His Nalam Mitchilasa, and you make this condition in the beginning, Einai Elo Kemafliga, he's just saying something outrageous, which is just trying to cause her some pain. But he's not. It's clear that he's not serious about this, and v'kosher, and therefore the get will be kosher. Rav Nachman Amarav, halach like Rav Yehuda ben Teimeh. We pass like Rav Yehuda ben Teimeh. And Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, Masnisa Nami Deike. We see this also clearly in our Mishnah. The Ktani, as our Mishnah says, Kol Shefshal Lekaime B'Soife V'Isnala Mitchilasa It Noi Kayam. When you make a t'nai in the beginning and it could be fulfilled, then the t'nai does take effect. So therefore, we understand from our Mishnah, like Rav already said before, Ha I Efshal Lekaime It Noi Batal. If you can't fulfill it, then there is no t'nai, and the Maisa takes effect. Shema Mino, so our mission is like Rabbi Yehuda ben Teimeh. Hadron, Haloch, Haseicheres HaPayalim. We shall return to you the 7th Peirik of Masechta Bava Metzia, Haseicheres HaPayalim.
So we pass from the content of Rabbi Yehuda ben Teimeh against the Chachamim.
Yeah, because it's a Stam Mishnah. So we go like the Stam Mishnah. Okay, we begin the 8th Peirik of Bava Metzia, Shoyel, which is continuing these halachas of the Shomrim. It's like the Heilige Mishnah, Shoyel is a person that borrows a cow. And together with the cow, he borrowed the owner. Meaning he's borrowing the cow along with the owner himself that hires himself with the cow to do the work for you. Or not that you borrow the services of the owner of the cow, he hired himself together with the cow that you borrowed from him. if the person first borrowed the services of this person, or he hired this person to work for him, and then he realizes, he needs also a cow to use. So then afterwards he borrows the cow from this person. Now Mesa, in both of these cases, whether he borrowed the cow and the owner together, or first the owner and then the cow, and now the cow dies in the shoyel's possession, and this is Mesa Kadaka, it just died, a neinus. But he's going to be potter, even though a shoyel is always chayiv for a neinus, but in this case is going to be potter. Shenamar, because the pasuk says in Ba'alav Imai Lo Yishalem. When you borrow something and you borrow the owner, at the time when you're borrowing, the owner is also borrowed together with you or even hired together with you, then Lo Yishalem, you're not going to pay. The Gemara is going to later explain that this applies also when you rent a cow. The Mishnah doesn't talk about this beferish, but here the Mishnah talks about a person that's borrowing a cow. But if when you borrow the cow, you just borrow the cow alone. Only at a later point, you also borrow the services of the owner of the cow, or you hired him as well to come work for you with this cow, or for anything else. But then, because at the time when you borrow the cow alone, so then, even an einus that happens later, you're going to be chayiv like every shoyel. Shenemar, ba'alav, einimai, if at the time when you borrowed the cow, the owner was not with you, shalom yishalom. You have to pay for the einus that happens. Okay, so now the Gemara it focuses on a certain detail that we saw in the Reisha of the Mishnah. In the Reisha of the Mishnah, it said that there's two possibilities. Either you borrow the cow and the owner at the very same moment, or you hired or borrowed the services of the owner first, and then the cow. So the Gemara says now, Midiktani Seifer, the second case the Mishnah said was that the person hired or borrowed the person first, and then he borrowed the cow. So Meklal, from this I understand, the Reisha Diktani Ima, in the Reisha of the Mishnah, when it says that he borrows the owner and the cow together, Ima, it means Ima Mamish, it means literally at the same time. But the Gemara asks, how's that possible? Ima mamish mi mishkachasla. Is it possible that you borrow the owner and the cow literally at the same moment? Why not? So the Gemara asks, because pare b'mishicha. In order to borrow the cow, when does the cow enter into the possession of the shoyel and the borrower? That's when you take it, when you pull it to your property. But the owner, when does he lend himself out, his services to you? When does he oblige himself to work for you? That's when he gives his word, ba'amira, and he says, yes, I'm ready to be hired to work for you. So if so, the amira, the owner is really hired first. And then with the Mashiach is when the cow becomes borrowed. So it's not happening literally at the same time. This is Rashi's pshat. Rashi learns Ba'amira means just with his word. He gives his word and he's hired out already. Taisa says there has to be also some kind of chalipin over here. Or, 1 second, is it in Taisus or the Rishonim maybe? The Gemara says that it's not exactly the same time. So the Gemara gives two possibilities that the owner and the cow could be borrowed at the exact same moment. Either the case over here is this cow was already in the property of the borrower. So he doesn't have to pull it and bring it into his property. Right there, it's already in his property, and he makes a deal with him, okay, I'm borrowing the cow and you together. And it's all at one moment. Or another pshat to Amalei, that he told the owner, At gufach loy tishal at shas meshiches parasach. He told him that you're going to be hired for me, or I'm going to use your services, that I'm borrowing you. But when I'm ready, when am I going to be ready? The moment I take the cow in my possession, then is when it's going to begin. So therefore, it happens at the same time. Okay, now here the Gemara goes back to the Mishnah that we learned before in Daf Tzad Gimel, where it brings the 4 Shemrim, and the Gemara discusses here Bechlal, the source in the Torah for the 4 Shemrim. Taisus over here says, even though really the Gemara should have discussed it before, when we had that Mishnah before in Daf Tzad Gimel, but because the Gemara waited until it brings here this Mishnah that brings the source in the Torah and Balivim Lo Yishalem, and then it goes back to bring the Mishnah of the 4 Shemrim and to say where is the source of the Torah for the 4 Shemrim. So Tnan Asam, as we learned before in the Mishnah on Daf Tzad Gimel, Arba Shemrim, the Shemrim are in 4 categories: Shem Mechinam, Va'ashoyel, Neisesachar, Va'aseicher. So the Shem Mechinam, what's the halacha? He's not paid. Nishba Lakayel. He swears regarding anything that happened that he was not negligent, and it'll be pater. Va'ashoyel, Meshalem Esakayel. The borrower will be responsible for everything, even an einus. The one that's paid when he's a shemer, or the renter, nishbain, ala shvura, vala shvuya, vala mesa. So he will swear to pater himself if it broke or got captured or died, which are things that are an eines. And they will have to pay for if it got lost or it got stolen. What's the source of this? Where do we see in the Torah these categories of the shemer? So we learned in the parsha, we learned in a brayso that is regarding the parsha of the shemerim. So parsha Rishayna, the first parsha in the Torah, Nemra b'Shem Chinam. It speaks about the Shem Chinam. What does it say in the first parsha in the Torah? This is all in Parshas Mishpatim. Rashi brings the psukim in the first parsha where it speaks about a shemer. It says over there, Chayitin Ishol Reyeyu Kesef Ekelum Lishmair, and the Torah there says V'gunav mi beisa ish. What happens? V'nikrev al bal bayis al holakim. That he goes and he swears and he's going to be pater on Geneva. That's the first parsha. So that is speaking about the Shem Chinam. Shnia, then there's the second parsha there in Mishpatim that's speaking about the Shem Sachar. Sorry, what does it say there in the second parsha? Also, it says Kitin Ishal Reyeyu, speaking about a Shemer. But then there in the second parsha it says that if it's umeis or nishba, shvus Hashem tiyeh. But in Ganav Yishalem. In the second parsha it says that he's only going to be pater if he got captured or it broke or died, which is an eines, then you pater. But if it got stolen, you will be chayav. So that second parsha is the Shem Sachar. Shlish is then in the third parsha, that's B'Shoyel. That's the Shoyel. There, the third parsha clearly says V'chi Yishal, if you borrow. So the Torah there says that the Nishbarei Meis, Shalom Yishalom, you have to pay. Okay, so now the Gemara will prove that the first two parshas is, like we just explained, the Shem Chinam and Shem Sachar. So the Gemara explains, so it's understood that we say that the third parsha, B'Shoyel, it speaks about the borrower, Meforish. That's what it says. So it says clearly a person that borrows, and he's chayiv even on a eines. This, that you say that the first parsha is talking about the Shem Chinam, and he's only responsible for Pshiyah, and that the second parsha is the Shem Sachar, as the Torah says that he's chayav on Geneva. But how do you know that? And the Torah does not specify that here it's Shem Sachar and here Shem Chinam. Why wouldn't I say the opposite? Maybe the first parsha is talking about the Shem Sachar, and he's only chayav for Pshiyah, and maybe the second parsha is the Shem Chinam, and he's chayav for the Geneva and Aveda. So the Gemara says, no, that doesn't make sense. Mistabra, it's logical to say, Shnia b'Shem Sachar. The second parsha is the same Shem Sachar. He's paid. So therefore, Sheken Chayev b'Geneva v'Aveda. If he's paid, so his obligation, his responsibility should be more. So therefore, he's Chayev even for Geneva and Aveda. The first parsha is the Shem Chinam, and he's only responsible for Pshiyah. But the Gemara asks on this, Adarabah, maybe I'll tell you on the contrary. There's a certain stringency that comes out in the first parsha. Why is that? Rishayna b'Shem Sachar. Maybe I should say that the first parsha is talking about the Shem Sachar. That's pater for Gneva v'Aveda. But then it comes out of stringency from this. Shekei mishalem tashlume kefil b'toyin tainas ganav. What happens though now if this person claims that it got stolen from him, and it turns out that he's lied, and he swore falsely about this, then he has to pay kefil. So it actually comes out that in such a case, there's going to be a stringency. By the Shem Chinam, when he swears about this, by Shem Sachar that is. By Shem Sachar, when he swears about this, then he's not going to be pater. So maybe over here, because he's just chayiv to pay, Geneva v'Aveda. If he claims that it got stolen, he has to pay the keren right away. So dafke by the first parsha where it says that you pater on Geneva v'Aveda, it comes out of stringency that if you claim that it got stolen, then if it turns out that you stole it, you have to pay kefil. So maybe we should say that the stringency of the Shem Sachar is dafke in the first parsha. And since the Torah, no, but afilahachi, nevertheless, karne, b'loi shvuah, the fact that the Torah in the first parsha is saying that you have to pay the principal of what you got without swearing falsely, but you have to pay for the Geneva v'Aveda when it happens, adife, that's a much bigger responsibility, mikfela b'shvuah, than the fact that if you would claim that it got stolen and you would be pater, but then it turns out that you stole it, that you would have to pay kefil, that's not as much as a stringency as the fact that if you claim it got stolen, you would have to pay right then and there. So therefore, it's still more logical to say that the Shem Sachar is in the second parsha, where you chayav for Gneva v'Aveda, and the first parsha, where you pater, is the Shem Chinam. And the Gemara says, Taida, I'll prove this to you, because here regarding the Shoyel, that's clear in the Taida. The Shoyel, by the one that borrows, Kol Ana Shaloi. The Shoyel, all benefit is his. So with him, we have to be the most stringent. And what does it say? He's responsible. If a gneva and aveda happens, we're not going to say that if he claims a gneva happened, he'll be potter, in order that later, if he wants to claim that it happened and if we find that he did it, he'll be chayiv for kefil. No, we say that he's chayiv to pay for the keren as soon as he claims that it got stolen, or even an einus. So therefore, we see over here that it's more of a chumrah to say that he's chayiv to pay as soon as he claims the gneva happened, not to say that he should be potter and then he would be chayiv for kefil if it turns out that he stole it. But now the Gemara here stops here on this point that we just said regarding the shayil. We just mentioned that the shayil, there's a reason to be the most stringent with the shayil because kol hana shalai. It's all his benefit, so therefore he has to guard it the best. It's the greatest responsibility. That the Gemara asks, shayil, kol hana shalai. Is this true that a shayil, when he borrows, the benefit is all his? It's not all his because v'abayim zaini. He has to feed the animal. The owner has a certain benefit when it's in the possession of the owner. He has to spend money to feed, and now you're feeding the animal. Says the Gemara, no, the kaime bagam. The case here is that the animal is in a swamp, in a place where it's able to eat itself. You don't have to feed it. But the Gemara asks, but still, you still have to guard it. It's still something that you have to do for the animal that the owner now does not have to do. It's not just pure hana of yours that you're using it. And says the Gemara, no, but not the masa. But I say, the lashon we said before is in the case where there is a hired guardian of the city that does the job already for everybody to guard the animals, and you don't have to do anything extra for this. Or viba yiseme. Now the Gemara says, alternatively, we could say, loy teime kol hana shaloi. It's not that all the hana is yours. Aleime roiv hana shaloi. By the case of the by the shayil, majority of the hana is yours because you're borrowing it. The other point is you're taking it for yourself to use, even if you do have to feed it or you do have to guard it. But the majority of the hana is yours. Or another pshat we can say is b'shi'ilas kelim. When it said that all of the hana is yours, we're not talking about animals. We're talking about a person that's borrowing vessels where he just uses it all for himself and there's no feeding, there's no guarding. That's the kol hana shalai. No, it's not like an animal that walks around and can walk off from you. Obviously, you have to be careful not to let it drop on the floor and break, but it's still not the kind of shmira that you have to do with an animal that walks off. Okay, now going back to the shayil. So the Gemara here asks, if you look in the psukim there, when it comes to the Naisa Sachar, which is the Shem Sachar and the Seicher, the Torah says 3 examples that it says in the Pasuk, as Rashi brings over there before, that if it was Nishbar, or Meis, Nishbar, or Nishbar. If it died, or it broke, or it got captured. 3 examples of an Einus. When it comes to the shayil though, when the Torah speaks about the Einus, it only gives 2 examples. It says Nishbar Meis, if it broke or died. So the Gemara says that Neisa Sacha v'Seicher Nishban al Shvure v'al Shvuye v'al Meisa. So when it comes to the Neisa Sacha and the Seicher, so if there's any of these Einus that happen, whether it broke, whether it got captured or died, so then you swear that this happened and you potter. Umishalmen is ha'aveda v'sagneve. And you pay Geneva and Aveda. Oh, here actually the Gemara is going to first focus. Sorry, I ran ahead a little. The Gemara is going to first focus on Geneva and Aveda. We said if whether it got stolen or it got lost, a Shem Esacha is responsible. So the question on this is, Bishloim Geneva. So it's understood that we know the source that if it gets stolen, is chayev, because that's what the pasuk says. The chsiv, im ganav yiganav mi'imai. If it got stolen, yishalom lebalav. He has to pay. As we explained before, that's the Shem Esacha. But Elo Aveda minolam. How do you know that if it gets lost, that it's also your responsibility? It doesn't say it in the Torah, it just says Geneva. The Tanya, so the answer is, because the Braisa says, because it says, Im Ganov Yi Ganev. The double lashon of Ganov Yi Ganev means, Ein Le'ele Geneva. I would think only if it got stolen. Aveda minayin. How do we know that the Shem Esacha is responsible if it gets lost? Tamad Loima, Im Ganov Yi Ganev. The double lashon of Ganov Yi Ganev teaches me, Nikol Makkah, not only if it gets stolen, but also if it gets lost. The Gemara asks on this, this is true according to the opinion that says that any such a kind of double lashon is extra, and we kedarshan from it. And we don't say that the Torah is just simply speaking similar to the language of people that uses this redundancy. But there's another opinion that says that this is not something you can darshan. This is common for the Torah to speak in this double language, and there's no drash here. So then, what's the source that you chaya for Geneva? So the answer in Eretz Yisrael in the West, this is actually logical. If a case of Geneva, a person breaks into your house and steals it from you, you put it in a safe place and he stole it from you. So that's Close to an einus. It's not an einus mamish. It wasn't an armed robbery. Maybe you could have put it in a safe, but it's close to an einus. Shalom, you have to pay. When you lost it, that's much closer to negligence. For sure, you should be a chayiv. So now the Gemara says, if so, according to the other opinion, why do we even need to darshan this from the pasuk? It's just so simple and logical. The other opinion says, Milsa, the Asya, the Kavachayme, as we find many times, even something that you could learn from a Kavachayme, Torah, V'kasav Lakra. The Torah writes it out clearly anyways. Okay, now going to the Shayel. A Shayel pays for any kind of Einis. So here the Gemara is going to point out, as I mentioned before, that there's different types of levels of Einsim. And when it comes to the Shayel, the Torah only says two examples, if it's Shvura or Mesa. So now, shvura umeisa, if it broke or it died. So that clearly says in the pasuk that those einsim is responsible, because it says either it broke or died. So you're going to be responsible for this. But ela shvuya b'shoyel minalan. How about a different kind of einis? An einis where it got captured. How do you know that that's something that he's responsible as well? That doesn't say by the shoyel clearly. If you would argue and say, well, it's just another example of an einus. So Neilif, Mishura, Mesa, I could compare it to if it broke or died. So it's the same thing. So the Gemara says, no, you can't compare. Why not? Because Mal Shvura Mesa, Sheken Einse, the Salik Adaitihu. By the Shvura and Mesa, this is something that could happen. Yes, it is an einus. It's not something that you cause or it's something you can done about. But when you take it, when you borrow it, you understand that this is something that could happen. So you take it, you borrow it with the understanding that you'll be responsible for this. On the other hand, when something got captured, that's a kind of thing that happens that's totally out of your control, something that you didn't even expect to happen. So you didn't take it thinking that you should be responsible for this, so you're not going to be responsible. So we can't learn out the case of Shvuya from Shvura and Mesa. So hello, the Gemara tries to say, well, Nemra Shvura Mesa b'Shayel. The Torah gives the example of if it broke or it died by the Shayel. Nemra Shvura Mesa b'Shem Sachar. It mentions also the examples of if it broke and it died by the Shem Sachar. Mala Alon. So just like by the Shem Sachar, Shvuya Imoy. There the Torah does mention the example of if it got captured. Avkan, so to hear by the Shayel, Shvuya Imoy. When the Torah speaks about the case of it, if it breaking or dying, it means also the example of if it got captured, just like it does it by the Shem Sachar. So we could compare and learn out from the Shem Sachar. But the Gemara says, no, you cannot learn out the Shayel from the Shem Sachar. Why not? Ikla Mifrach, I could refute this comparison because Ma the Shem Sachar shekain liftur. Over there, the Torah is giving all three examples, including the case where it got captured, to say that it will be exempt. It's coming to say that it got captured, which is totally out of your control, and you didn't expect it, that you'd be pater. Here we're looking for a source to say that the shayel would be responsible even for it getting captured, which is something that you totally didn't expect. You can't compare that or learn it out from what it says by the Shem Sachar. Ella says the Gemara, Kerab Nasan. The answer over here is, where do I know that it includes even if it got captured, like what Rav Nassan said? The Tanya, Rav Nassan said, Oi, when it says the extra word of Oi, L'Rabba is Shvuya. That is coming to say, even if it got captured, right? The Torah here says, V'nishbar Oi Meis. So the Oi comes to say, even if it got captured. So the Gemara asks, the Oi is not necessarily extra. The Gemara, Hi Oi, Mi Boya Le'lechalek. Don't you need the word Oi to say or? Literally to say, either it broke or it died. Because if without the word oy, the sol kedai, I would think to say ada mispera umesa loy mechayev, that maybe a person that borrows will not be responsible to pay unless it both broke and then also died. Kamash malan. So therefore the Torah has to say the word oy, that no, it's either or. So the word oy is not extra. So here now the Gemara brings that this concept that when you have the word oy in the Torah could write, for example here, the Torah could write nishbar oy meis, or the Torah could write nishbar umeis. So the question is, if we would say without an oy, would it be understood that it means either or do you need the oy to tell me that it means either or? So the Gemara brings this is actually a machlekes and another place where you find where it doesn't say the word oy. So we find this machlokes between Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yeshia. So Rabbi Yonasan. According to Rabbi Yonasan, you don't need the word oy. The word oy is extra because even without it, it's understood that it means either or. But according to Rabbi Yeshia, you do need the word oy to say either or. What are we going to say in our case? And the Gemara brings the source of this. The Tanya, the Brisa says, Ish ashiyikalol esaviv ve'esimai. A person that curses his father and his mother. So here it doesn't say oy, it just says esaviv ve'esimai. So ein liyala aviv ve'imai. I would think that over there he's only going to be chayev if he curses both the father and the mother. Aviv b'loy imay, imay b'loy aviv minayin. How do I know that even if he curses the father and not the mother, or the mother and not the father, how do I know that he's going to be chayev? Talmud loyma. So there's another pasuk there. The pasuk there continues in the end. Actually, the same pasuk. It says in the end, aviv ve'imay kilel. So it says aviv ve'imay kilel. So Rashi says. So one time the Torah said the word aviv near the word yikalel. Another time the Torah said the word imay near yikalel, so you understand that it's one without the other. Okay. Aviv kilel, imay kilel. The word kilel goes on each one separately. Divrei Rabbi Yeshia, this is according to Rabbi Yeshia. So we see over here that according to Rabbi Yeshia, when it says es aviv es imay, without the word oy, I would say that it means both together. You're going to need another pasuk to teach me that it means separately. So if so, the same thing in our case. The oy that we say over here is needed to tell me that nishbara and mesa are separate. But now that Rabbi Yonasan says, mashma shneim ke'echad or mashma echad b'fnei atzmai. When the Torah writes aviv v'imai, so you could think that it means both together, and you could think maybe that it means separate. So he says, what? How do you know? So I say like this, that only if the Torah would write the word yachtav, then I would say that it means only if you would curse the father and the mother together. But if the Torah does not say the word yachtav, then when it says aviv and imay, it's understood that it means separately. I don't need a separate pasuk to teach me that it means separately. So if so, according to Rabbi Yonasan, the oy that it says over here is extra, so it could go on shvuya. So the Gemara answers, Afil Taimer Rabbi Yeshia. No, in our case, the oy, even Rabbi Yeshia would agree is extra. That lechalek hachalei tzarech. I don't need the word oy to say that, to separate that it doesn't have to be both together, that it got broken and then it died. It's understood that it's separate. Why? My time is svarahu, because it's logical. Mali katla kula, mali katla palga. Why would I say that only if it broke and it died should you be responsible? If it broke, so then you're responsible for that breakage that happened, and if it died, you're responsible for the dying. Why should I think that it has to be dafka together? So here the oy is extra, and therefore the oy comes to be marbe, even the shvuya. Yeah.
What's the difference between shvuya